Pete Hegseth called a press conference at the Department of War. He did not say Department of Defense, he said Department of War. Then he told journalists word for word what their headlines should say. Then he called the Strait of Hormuz crisis fake news. Then he said Iran's leaders are rats going underground. Then he got on his knees and prayed. This is America's Secretary of Defense, running a war in week 2. Watch this.
Now, Secretary Hegseth and General Kane coming to the podium. Let's listen in.
Let's listen in.
Good morning. I'll start, as we often do here at the Department of War, with the bottom line up front. For the world to hear and the press to actually admit that the United States is decimating the radical Iranian regime's military in a way the world has never seen before. Never before has a modern, capable military, which Iran used to have, been so quickly destroyed and made combat ineffective, devastated. We said it would not be a fair fight, and it has not been. As I stated during our first press conference on day 2, that was 10 short days ago, the combination of the world's 2 most powerful air forces is unprecedented and unbeatable. Between our Air Force and that of the Israelis, over 15,000 enemy targets have been struck. That's well over 1,000 a day. No other combination of countries in the world can do that. So today, as we speak, we fly over the top of Iran and Tehran. Fighters and bombers all day picking targets as they choose. As our intelligence gets better and better and more refined. Looking up, the IRGC and Iranian regime sees only 2 things on the side of aircraft: the stars and stripes and the Star of David. The evil regime's worst nightmare. Iran has no air defenses. Iran has no air force. Iran has no navy. Their missiles, their missile launchers and drones being destroyed or shot out of the sky. Their missile volume is down 90%.
Iran has no air force. Iran has no navy. Their missile volume is down 90%. Their drone attacks down 95%. 15,000 targets struck. Never been seen before in history. That is what Pete Hegseth said at the podium. Now let me tell you what is also true. At the exact same moment he was saying all of that, the Strait of Hormuz is closed. 1,000 ships are sitting in a backlog unable to move. Iran's new supreme leader, in his first public statement, said the strait will stay closed indefinitely. Oil is approaching $100 a barrel. Iran is firing cluster munitions at Tel Aviv. Israelis are in bomb shelters. U.S. bases across the region are being hit. 8 Americans are dead. A KC-135 refueling plane crashed in Iraq. The war is now being fought across more than a dozen countries. Iran has no navy. But they are closing the strait that carries 20% of the world's oil supply. With the navy they no longer have, Iran has no missiles. But their missile volume is down 90%, meaning they still have 10%. And that 10% is still hitting targets, still killing people, still forcing Israelis into bomb shelters. Iran's drone attacks are down 95%, but they are still launching drone swarms, still hitting oil tankers, still using unmanned surface drones to attack shipping in the Persian Gulf. With the drones they no longer have. Here's what Hegseth is doing at that podium. He is describing a version of this war where everything is going perfectly, where Iran is crushed, where America is winning so hard it has never been seen before in history. And then the actual war, the one happening in reality, keeps contradicting him every single day. The New York Times interviewed a dozen U.S. officials this week. Their conclusion, the White House did not think Iran would close the Strait of Hormuz, did not plan for it. Hegseth says they thought of everything. The New York Times says they thought of nothing. One of those sources is 12 people inside the administration speaking on the record to the newspaper of record. The other is a man who calls his department the Department of War and gets on his knees to pray at press conferences. You decide which one you believe. And here is the thing about the 15,000 targets struck. That is a real number. The U.S. military has been hitting Iran hard. The combination of U.S. and Israeli air power is genuinely devastating. But devastating Iran militarily and winning the war are two completely different things. Iran does not need to win militarily. They need to survive long enough to impose costs on America, on the global economy, on America's allies that make continuing the war politically impossible. The Strait of Hormuz being closed indefinitely. That is Iran winning. Not on the battlefield. Economically, strategically, in the way that actually matters. And Hegseth is standing at a podium talking about targets struck per day.
Our will, it is unshakable. Our options, maximized, and our capabilities still building. We're going up, they're going down. As I said from the start, President Trump holds the cards. He'll determine the pace, the tempo, and the timing of this conflict. His hand firmly on the wheel, as well as on the throttle setting. America first, peace through strength in action. From day one, as our nation expects and the president demands, our warriors have fought with lethality, precision, and rapid innovation. In fact, today will be, yet again, the highest volume of strikes that America has put over the skies of Iran and Tehran. The number of sorties and number of bomber pulses, the highest yet, ramping up and only up. And quantity has a quality of its own as we continue to ramp up. Every tool of AI, of cyber, of space, EW, counter-UAS, you name it, we're employing it. Blinding, confusing, and deceiving our enemy. Because we know who the good guys are here. And the American people do too. And that makes my job simple. I serve God, the troops, the country, the Constitution, and the President of the United States, and answer only to those. All in service of victory on the battlefield and the military objectives that we've laid out from day one. Defeat the missiles, missile launchers, and defense industrial base, which I laid out today. Defeat the Navy and deny Iran the ability to have a nuclear weapon. Clear, decisive, achievable. And Admiral Cooper knows, the CENTCOM commander who we spent a couple of hours with last night, that in pursuit of those objectives, we have his back in every way. His commanders know that, and so do the troops in harm's way. Admiral Cooper gets what he needs, the assets, the authorities, the munitions, you name it. We will stop at nothing to win. War is hell. War is chaos. And as we saw yesterday with the tragic crash of our KC-135 tanker, bad things can happen. American heroes, all of them. And as I have with all of them, as we have, we will greet those heroes at Dover, and their sacrifice will only recommit us to the resolve of this mission. But war in this context and in pursuit of peace is necessary, which is why each day on bended knee we continue to appeal to heaven, to Almighty God's providence, to watch over and give special skill and confidence to our leaders and to our warriors. To those warriors who this nation prays for every single day, I hear from all of you out there who pray for them every day. Stay on bended knee and pray for them. I continue to say to them, Godspeed. May the Lord bless you and keep going.
Let me be very clear about what just happened in that clip. The Secretary of Defense of the United States at an official Pentagon press conference told journalists what their headlines should say. Not suggested. Not recommended. Told. He said the banner should not read Mideast war intensifies. He said it should read Iran increasingly desperate. He said CNN's report that the White House underestimated the Strait of Hormuz impact is fake news. Patently ridiculous. Then he said, and this is a direct quote, "The sooner David Ellison takes over CNN, the better. The the Secretary of Defense, at a government press briefing, calling for a specific billionaire to take over a news network because that network reported something he did not like. That is not a press conference. That is state media telling journalists how to do their jobs. And here is why the CNN report he called patently ridiculous is actually correct. The New York Times interviewed 12 U.S. officials. Their conclusion: the White House did not plan for the Strait of Hormuz closure, did not think it would happen. The Wall Street Journal reported that after Trump announced a maritime insurance plan, the White House scrambled to figure out how maritime insurance works, called London brokers, asked how the market operates. Hegseth says CNN is wrong. The New York Times and Wall Street Journal, using sources inside his own administration, say CNN is right. But that is not even the most important thing he said at that podium. He called Iran's leaders rats. He said they are cowering underground. He described the new supreme leader as wounded, likely disfigured, scared, on the run. Now, whether any of that is true or not, ask yourself this question. If Iran's military is completely destroyed, if they have no air force, no navy, no missiles, no production capability, if their leaders are rats hiding underground, if the war is being won at a pace the world has never seen before, why is the Strait of Hormuz still closed? Why are oil tankers still being hit? Why are Israelis still in bomb shelters? Why did a KC-135 American refueling plane crash in Iraq this week? Why are 8 Americans dead and more injured every day? Why is the war now being fought across more than a dozen countries? If Iran is as destroyed as Hegseth says, none of those things should be happening. But they are happening right now, today. Because here is the truth that Hegseth cannot say at that podium. You can destroy an air force and still lose a war. You can hit 15,000 targets and still not achieve your objectives. You can call your enemy rats and they can still close the most important shipping lane in the world. Military victory and strategic victory are not the same thing. And America is achieving the first while Iran is winning the second. And Hegseth closed his press conference by getting on his knees and appealing to Almighty God. I want to be careful here. There is nothing wrong with prayer. Many people of faith pray. Many soldiers pray. Many leaders pray. But when the Secretary of Defense ends a press conference about a war by telling journalists what headlines to write, calling a news network's ownership into question, and then appealing to heaven for God's providence to watch over the leaders of this war, that is not a press conference. That is a performance, a show, designed not to inform the American public, but to tell them what to feel. The American public deserves facts, not headlines, not God's providence. Facts about a war that 8 Americans have died in, that is costing $10 billion, that has closed the strait carrying 20% of the world's oil. That is now spreading across more than a dozen countries. Those facts, not the ones Hegseth wants journalists to write, the real ones. Share this video, because the press conference you just watched was designed to make sure you never see them. Subscribe, new video every week. Drop a comment. Do you trust Pete Hegseth's version of this war? Because the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and 12 people inside his own administration have a very different story.